Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out the FuriBee GT215 Fire Dancer, and that is one heck of a name, and it has got some impressive specifications, which begs the question, how on earth do FuriBee do it? We have got what seems like top spec components with a budget price, which is absolutely amazing, and that is something that FuriBee have always been good at. My favourite models being the FuriBee Futon 200. I think that was the first in their range, sadly now discontinued, and the Dark Max, one of my favourite models, and now potentially this. However, if you are interested in this model, or you've even already bought this model, you really want to watch this video because there's some things about this copter that you might not be aware of or might not even like. So before I get on to that, let's talk about the specifications. So it is a True X frame. It's actually a clone, so if you're not into buying of clones, then this isn't for you. It is using 2306 2400 kV motors. They are unbranded, but I tell you what, they aren't half a pretty motor. We have got a star shape on here, very nice, and we've got a hollow shaft, and then we actually have got a hex screw in there rather than a C-clip. And that's been really important for me, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The propellers, I don't think they're a branded propeller. And let's see what it says there. They are a 5048. And you can see we've got some nice braided cables there going up to the ESC board. So the ESC board is a 4-in-1, obviously. It's running BL Halley S. They are a 35 amp ESC board, and we have an XT60 on the back. It takes a 4 to 6S battery, but more on that a bit later. Let's carry on with the specs. We then have got a Omnibus F4. It's the SD version, running Betaflight version 3.2. which is great, and it's also running Betaflight on-screen display. And then above that we have got a VTX. It's a 48 channel and it's a switcher, so it switches from 25 milliwatt to 200 milliwatt to 600 milliwatt supposedly. I will check that a little bit later. The VTX looks pretty nice actually. It's using one of these MMCX connectors, really hefty connector, and they should be used on all VTXs, I think. We've got these two buttons here. One says power and the other one says FR for frequency. And then we've got these LEDs down the side here. So this one here is for your 8 channels. This one here is for your different bands. And then the power output there, you've got some LEDs. However, the instructions that you get, so these are the instructions, they don't detail which LED relates to which power output. So I'll be checking that out later. The antenna that you are given is a pagoda antenna. I don't like pagoda antennas, it's just my preference, so I switched it out to a Omway antenna. The weight of the copter is 329 grams, so it's not a lightweight copter by any means. So if you're comparing it to the Futon 200, that one was 270 grams, something like that. So it's a heavier copter, but we do have all of this aluminium here protecting the camera. Now, the camera, according to the specs online, it's a CCD camera. It's not. It's a 16:9 CMOS camera, the same as they started putting on the B-Fight copter. It's got the little on-screen display button on the back. So it is not a CCD camera. It's also not a HD camera. I think a lot of people were expecting this model to have kind of like a run cam split affair in it, because the Details on GearBest website suggested it got a 1080p HD camera. This model does not have that. However, and this might be an exclusive, they are bringing a version out. It's going to be the X215 that's going to have that stack in it, and I can overlay some pictures here. And it's not currently listed. I don't have any details of when it's going to be released. But if you are into that sort of thing, then there is a copter coming like that. But it's not this one. So yeah, bit misleading that, but there you go. So this model comes in various flavors of receiver, and I'll link in the below to those. This one that I received was the FreeSky version, and it came with one of these little tiny D8 receivers, which I don't trust on a model this big. In fact, on the Dark Max model, I switched it out because I was worried about getting fail-safes. So yeah, what I've done is I have removed this and I've attached a XM Plus because I saw a copter of this spec deserves a decent receiver. So that was just very easy to switch out. I just desoldered it. So there are some other things I have had to do. First of all, you'll notice, compared to pictures, there is this plate that sits on top of there. And the problem with having this plate is that the pin inside the connector doesn't reach, because this makes the screw part, the thread, too short, and it doesn't screw all the way in. And the way that you can tell that is these spin around freely, so I can spin that around freely, but if I tighten this up, then it goes stiff, and that's when the pin is connected. So yeah, easy fix, just unscrew this. I actually needed to use a socket set because this screw was in really tight, and yeah, use the socket set. Be very careful though, because when you unscrew this, it's tight. You don't want to twist the connection underneath because it can twist and snap off, so be very careful when you do that. So what is going to make my video so important for you if you've bought this? Well, the answer is it doesn't fly great out of the box. It's not set up properly. So I took this out, I set it all up. That part was very easy. I was flying it around and I was getting flips of death. I assumed that the throttle idle was too low, so I bumped that up. It was still doing it. So after a lot of flying around, getting covered in mud, taking this thing apart, the motors got absolutely caked in mud, and everything did. I've managed to get most of it out, but there's a little grinding noise in one of these motors because I didn't get all of the mud out. You have to play with the motor timing in BL-HALI-S. Otherwise, you're just going to get these desyncs. I don't like to call them desyncs, but the copter flips out of control under throttle. And what you need to do, and I'll show you a little bit later in BL-HALI-S, is change the motor timing to medium-low. And once you do that on a 4S battery, it stops doing it. So I should say this was all on a 4S battery. You can fly this supposedly on a 5 to 6S battery, but I'm afraid to do that at the moment because I probably spent about an hour cleaning mud off this thing just to get it flying on a 4S. So I've had problems, but it's flying nice now. I've had a fair few flights without any desyncs and things like that. So if you are a beginner and thinking, wow, this is a top spec thing, yes it is, but it's not straightforward to get flying. And I'll do a full setup. I'll take you through beta flight and I'll take you through BL-HALI-S as well. Another thing that I found out the hard way is the VTX actually switches the channel on the AUX 2. Just like the B-Fight did, which means if you've got your modes set up on the AUX 2 and you flick it, then it's going to change your channel and you'll crash, which is rubbish. Also, if you get a fail-safe while you're flying around, and you might get mini fail-safes that you don't even realize, that can also change the channel. So just like the B-Fight, it is best to remove the signal wire that is going from the S-bus to here, and that is something that is a must in my opinion. It sounds great being able to change your channel off a switch, but in reality we get fail-safes. It's not a great system. So because I'm nice like that, let's see which one of these wires we need to pull. So to take this thing apart, it's really easy. Just 2 screws here, 2 screws there. It's the 2mm hex driver size, and you can see there that this is where the receiver attaches. So the white cable is the signal for the receiver, and then it's actually this red wire. You'd think it would be this yellow one, but it's not. This red one here is connected to the signal of the receiver, and it's going into, I think it's the 2nd pin. So either desolder it from there or lift the pad up here and pull it out, and that should fix that problem. I think I'm just going to completely remove it, but you have to be careful that you don't remove the signal to your receiver at the same time. And just while we are here, so yeah, the VTX sits on the top there, and you've got more hex screws there. I noticed that there's a little bit of noise that comes through to the video, more so than usual. And yeah, I think it's because I'm not sure about these VTXs that sit in this stack, because there's a lot of noise that goes on here, and the noise is always there, and the RF shielding is pointing directly down there. It's so close together. I can't help but think if this was separated, then you wouldn't get the noise. The thing is though, this sits in here so close, I don't know how you would do that. You probably have to use a different VTX, maybe a Unify Pro or something like that, and attach it up here somewhere. But then again, we're talking more cost, more money, so yeah, there's that to bear in mind for sure. So there is a buzzer in here too, which is good. However, it is loose, and mine was pressing against this metal frame, and when it went off, the vibrations from the buzzer through the frame made a horrible noise. So I would suggest maybe strapping this down somehow, maybe a cable tie or something like that. Again, a small thing, but maybe not something you want to do as a complete beginner. So what else do you get in the box? Well, you get a spare set of propellers, you get a little carbon spanner for putting your locking nuts on. The locking nuts as well, they are the standard size. I think really they should be the low profile size, because they're only just catching the locking mechanism there. And I thought, well, they've given you some of the low profile ones. They're not, they're the same. So I think they've maybe realized that actually, yeah, these might come off. We'll give you a spare set. I haven't had these come off yet in the flying that I have done. You don't get much else. You don't get a battery. You are given a battery strap, but you'll notice this is a Pyro drone battery strap, and that is because in all of the desinks that I was getting and the mud and everything, the battery strap snapped. Another thing I've noticed as well, the arms, they are individual and they're quite thin. There's a little bit of play in it, and I think these need tightening up a little bit more, because I've seen this on my floss frame, and it could be down to the crashes that I had, but nothing actually snapped, and it had some really horrendous crashes, so it was good just to test that out at least. You're given a manual, but it doesn't tell you much about the setup, more tells you about the specifications here and what it's got. You see it says CCD camera. I really don't think it is. Look at that resolution, 1080p HD. How can it be? We've got a VTX chart on the back that does not match up to the lights. So yeah, I don't know if they have got the wrong chart or what, but it does have the right number of channels. It's just they aren't in this order here. So yeah, there are definitely downsides to this. You know, it's highly spec'd, but they are working to a price, so I guess you can't expect perfection with it. So yeah, it tells you the different receivers here, so Fly, Sky, DSMX there as well, and yeah, that's your lot. That is all you get. So before I move on, let's just check the power output of the VTX with my meter of doom, because it doesn't detail which one of these LEDs relates to which power output, and even if the VTX is producing the power that it says it is. So I've got a battery here. This is the battery I'm going to be using. It's a Tattoo R-Line 1300 milliamp 4S, and let's plug it in here. So I'm just going to switch the power button. It's really difficult to reach the frequency button. You kind of have to move your finger across and you end up pressing the power button. Well, that's in the off position there, so no LED. What's the power output? Oh, it's looking good, isn't it? 22 milliwatt, and that should go down a little bit. So 25 milliwatt, yeah, about right, I would say. That's good news, isn't it? So let's try the next one. So it's an orange LED there. Let's see what that says. We've got 120 milliwatt. So it said it was going to be 200, so a little bit off that one. And then finally, let's press the red one. What's that at? So they say 600 milliwatt, but it's actually 270 milliwatt, 300 milliwatt. So a little bit of fibbing there, but I'm absolutely fine with that. It's much better than the FuriBee Nebula, which was reading 0.4 milliwatt there. So yeah, I'm happy with that, but not 600 milliwatt coming out of this. It's 250 milliwatt, probably 300 when you plug it in, and then it decreases as it heats up, etc. So to set the model up in the Tyrannus is pretty easy. I have just created a model called the GT215 there, and then you want to set your failsafe to no pulses, and then you want D16 mode if you are using the XM Plus, or D8 if you're using the included receiver, and then bind to it. One thing I like about this system is the receiver powers up just off USB, so it's quite easy to just plug the USB connector in and then bind it. And then if I page over to my mixer, so this Tyrannus is set up as TAER, so some are set up as AETR out of the box these days, so you might want to change the mapping in Betaflight. And then on channel 5, we just edit there, I've called that ARM, and that is set up on this 2-position switch there, so you just move the switch you want it to be and it saves it. And then you can see I've got channel 6 skipped, and that is because that is linked up to the VTX and I just don't want that changing, so I've skipped that one. Then on channel 7 I have got the buzzer, so for lost model alarm, and again I've got that on this switch here, you just change that there. And then I've got the mode on channel 8, and again that's just set up on that switch there, and that's it. It's ready for setting up in Betaflight. Okay, so here we are in the Betaflight configurator. You get it from the Chrome App Store. I've got the quadcopter plugged into the computer via a USB cable. Make sure you remove the props for this part. So you can see there it says COM16 at the top. I'm going to connect to it. The first thing that you want to do is go into the CLI and type in diff. That is going to save all of your LED settings. So yes, there's an LED board on the back of this that's connected to the DIN. So if you want to save all of that, copy all of this, put it into a text file, and just keep it for backup. Whilst I'm here, I might as well show you the version. So you can see there it is Omnibus F4 SD version 3.20. I think it's on 3.22 now, so yeah, you might want to update that. And just while we're in the CLI, something that I like to put in is set small underscore angle equals 180. And then type save. That means that the copter will arm no matter what angle it's at. So if you get stuck in a tree or something like that, you'll be able to arm it and sort of waggle it out of a tree. So I'm just going to press save there and it will reset. So if we connect back to it, might take a second, there we go. Right, so I'll just enable expert mode and just show you my setup. So You can calibrate the accelerometer here, so make sure the copter's on a flat surface when you do that. If we go into the ports, so it's on the UART1 for this receiver. It's already set up as that though. If we go into the configuration, so it is set up as DShot 600. I think motor stop was turned on, so I've turned that off. It's just my preference for acro. And I've got the motor idle speed at 9, and it's fine like that. It's incredibly floaty even at 9. These motors run at really low RPM with this ESC combination. So there's no board alignment or anything like that. I've just kept the PID loop frequency and gyro update frequency the same, but you can mess around with that if you like. It can go higher because this is an F4 board. And then down here it's serial based receiver and S-bus there. And I've also changed the craft name because that was just blank. I've called it GT215. If we come down here, this is pretty much stock settings, so I don't know why servo tilt is there. You don't need that. You do need LED strip, and I've got air mode permanently on and on-screen display already on. I've got anti-gravity and dynamic filtering turned on as well. I'm not going to go through removing the filters, etc., but I just turn it on. You can loop that up separately if you like, and then everything's turned on here as well. And let's see if there's anything else. No, that's all set up fine. So in power and battery, it did have the current meter turned on. There's no current meter on this copter, so I've turned that off. I've reduced the warning cell voltages to 3.2 just because I don't like the beeper going off at the top of the throttle, and I just monitor the battery voltage through the on-screen display and make sure I don't let it get too low. Fail-safe you don't really need to mess with these days, but make sure it's set to drop, and you need to test that, so plug your battery in and arm it and then turn the transmitter off and make sure it disarms. But yeah, standard thing. PID tuning, these are just the stock 3.2 PIDs, and this is what I'm going to be flying on today. And then Super 8, I just bumped that up to 0.8, it's just my preference there. And I think that's everything there. Under receiver, so my Tyrannus is set up as TAER, so that's throttle, aileron, elevator and rudder, and then those are your aux channels there. So if we go into modes, so it did have some modes entered, but I've changed it, so it's going to match the Tyrannus that I set up earlier. So on the aux 1 I've got it to arm, and then on the aux 4 I've got angle, horizon and acro, and then air mode and anti-gravity is permanently on anyways. And I've missed aux 2 out just because I hadn't removed the wire for the flight to the VTX, so I didn't want that changing the channel. So I've got the beeper on aux 3 there as well. Nothing in adjustments and nothing under servos. Don't need to calibrate the ESCs because it's running DShot. And then on-screen display, I've gone and changed all this around for my liking. So we've got the battery voltage, that's the overall voltage, the craft name, the flight mode, the average voltage, and then the flight time, and that's all I like to run. I've also turned off all of these things as well, statistics at the end. And then the LED strips here, so yeah, these are just keyed in here to do certain things like arm state and stuff. I think there's like an indicator on there as well, yeah, indicator 2. So that's everything in Betaflight. So what I'm going to do now is disconnect from here, and I'm actually going to plug a battery in, and I'm going to stress this again, make sure the props are off and make sure you're disconnected from here, and then we'll go into BL Heli Suite and then connect to it and then read the setup. And then you can see here, so it's BL Heli S 16.6, and all the direction is normal, so nothing changed there. And this is what you need to change if you don't want to get the weird flips of death desync for this model. Change it to medium low. I think it's to do with the fact that these motors are a lower kV, which means they're not spinning as fast, and it's all to do with the timing of the motor spinning. And I think when it gets out of time, then that's when it does its crazy flip. So this is just what I found. You're welcome to try it. It's working for me on a 4S. Not sure about 5 or 6S. Might wait until a day where it's frosty out there, so if I crash it's not going to get caked in mud because it's going to be frozen. Otherwise it's an hour of cleaning mud out of the motors. But that is pretty much everything. You can set the beacon delay to a short time if you want, but we've got a lost model alarm set up there, so no real need for that, and that is all of the setup that you need to see. Okay, let's get and do some dancing with some fire. This is the Maiden, so I'm being careful with it. Oh, it feels really floaty. Well, I think everyone will want to see the punch, so let's try it. Wow. Yeah. Just on a 4S. Loads of power. Look at that. It's so floaty. And that is with 7% idle. And it's still that floaty. Let's try acro. Nice. Not that noisy on a 4S, but bags of power, absolutely bags of it. Let's try a loop, sort of. Wow, impressive. That is really nice, just the stock PIDs. Feels pretty smooth to me. Yeah, bags of power. The power reminds me of the B-Fight. The kind of delivery, sort of smooth, quiet, but brutal. I can't imagine what this is going to be like on a 5 or a 6S. I mean, there's just no need for it, is there? Look how floaty the thing is. It's like it's defying gravity. It really is a dancer. And that pink colour scheme, deceptive. Wow, I like this. Yeah, just really accurate. These loops are really nice. So far so good with the line of sight. Oh, I could just fly this all day. It's so easy. Effortless. Look at that. No buzzer going off at the top of the throttle either. Although the voltage warning is set pretty low. So, could be that. This thing is a dancer. Oh, that is very nice, I have to say. Look at that. Doing flips all day long. Look at this, really does dance. I think with just how floaty it is, it just seems to flow really well. I'm having far too much fun here. Right, let's come in for a landing and I'll get and do some FPV with it. Okay, so I can't say it was a pleasant model to review because of all of the figuring out that I had to do. And yeah, there are some downsides to it. I'm not happy with the noise on the camera. I think that's RF noise because it doesn't really change when you arm the copter, so that's electrical noise filtering through to the VTX, probably from the regulators and the flight controller or something. And I think I'd switch the camera out in general. I mean, it's okay, but I prefer a 4x3 CCD camera, I think. That being said, do I think it's worth the money? Yes, because it's very cheap. Currently, £121 for all of this is fantastic. And honestly, it's very rare that I get an RTF and don't change things up. The only model I haven't changed things up on is the FuriBee Photon 200, which is still sitting completely stuck, and I love to fly it stuck. Everything else needed some kind of improvement. So yes, I do think it's worth the money, but I think some of this noise needs addressing, or looking at maybe some better shielding or something like that, like many people did with the X215 model. And yeah, I think you get a better experience. And yeah, it took quite a bit of setup, but hopefully people who bought the model will find this video and, you know, it will help them. Things that it needs: it could do with a better battery strap. That's a small thing. It could do with a silicone mat so the battery doesn't slip out, because yeah, very slippy with the stock strap. But if you get one of those straps with the rubber attached, then it's not so bad. Flew nicely on the stock PIDs once I had sorted out the ESC desync problem. And despite the VTX not being as powerful as they said it would be, the reception was pretty good. You know, looking through all the general noise that's already there on the video. I'm using the real ACC Pro Plus diversity module, I should say, along with the Invader patch antenna from Menace and an Omway cloverleaf antenna, and I'm not a fan of the Pagoda antenna there as well. So yeah, flight time on this 1300 mAh 4S battery, about 4 minutes, and I'm able to do my usual flight maneuvers that I like to do. It's not great conditions this time of year for, well, any copter outside, because the sun is just always so low on the horizon, so everything's always washed out. Even CCD cameras really struggle with it. Look at that, into the sun there, but you can see where you're going, you know, so it's a pretty good CMOS camera, I would say. You know, I think it's the same as we have seen on some of these other RTF models. But there you go. Yeah, it's not as straightforward as I was hoping. You know, there's some copters out there you can just plug in and go and not have any issues. This isn't one of those copters, but I still think it's incredible for the money, and I really don't know how they managed to get it so cheap. But if you were expecting a model to just work out of the box with no issues, this isn't it. But, you know, again, great for the price. It wasn't too bad on the amps, I didn't think. You do see the battery voltage dip into the 13s, but that's not unusual these days as we ask for incredible miracles to happen with these batteries that we are using. But yeah, let me know if this video helped you out to decide whether you're going to get this model or not, or even if it helped you with it having bought the model, and I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.